Did you ever look at something like this crib or maybe some curtains in your favorite dollhouse store or online and wonder, how did they get those pleats? Pleating is really easy if you have the right tool. So stay tuned and I'll show you my favorite tool to make perfect pleats every time. This is a tool I use a lot when I'm working with fabrics for a dollhouse, whether I'm making something that someone has ordered that I'm going to sell them, or if I'm making something for my own dollhouse. This is called the Pretty Pleat one. Now I've had this for several years. I bought this a long time ago and I've used it a lot. As you can see, it's still in really good shape. I need to clean it again. You just clean it with like soap and water. It comes with a sheet of really good instructions and these two piece of plastic, like a blank card, and a piece of wood. A couple of things I like to have in addition are some thin knitting needles or maybe wooden skewers, and I'll use both today. And you need some fabric to pleat. When you're choosing your fabric, you can use any fabric. It does need to be something that can stand up to heat, because you're going to use a steam iron is the easiest way. You can do this with just spray starch and let it dry though. You will need some spray starch or some water. I prefer to use spray starch. And I get this at the dollar store, so it's not an expensive product to use. This is 100% cotton fabric. I like to use 100% cotton or silk in my miniatures because I find it drapes better. But if the fabric you fell in love with has some polyester in it, that's fine. One thing I'll say is if your fabric wrinkles really easily, it's going to pleat a lot easier than a fabric that's maybe permanent press, that's got a coating in it or is made out of fabrics that are specifically designed to not wrinkle. Those are harder to work with, but it can be done. Why don't I get this wet with some spray starch, and I'll show you just how easy it is to get started. So I'm going to spray some spray starch on it, and I want to get it pretty wet. Now you can, like I said, you can use water if you want to, if you don't have starch. That's fine. Now I like to put my fabric in right side down. We're working from the back. Now if you have fabric, if the ends of your fabric are going to show, you need to finish the ends. Since I'm just doing this for a demonstration, I didn't hem. You can either use something like Fray Check or one of the other Fray Stop products and do the edges. You could just paint some glue on it and get rid of the fraying that way, or you could actually fold over a hem and sew it or glue it. If you fold a hem, it's best to fold both top and bottom, because if it's thicker at one end than the other, it's going to be hard to keep it even when you're doing your pleats. Now at the beginning here, I'm going to do every pleat. What we are going to do is we're going to lay our fabric here. We're going to use the card to push our fabric down into these ridges. Now you'll need to hold it in the ridge. That's where this little piece of wood comes in handy. So do these. Hold it in there and then push the fabric in. And now I like to actually keep a couple of them held down. You can use the skewers, you can use knitting needles, you can use whatever you've got. It does come with one of these. I find having a few extra pieces to hold it in makes my life easier, because until it dries a little, it does want to come out. Now it's probably safe to pull this out. Push the next one down and use this one. And now one more. Now let's use the iron. And I'm just going to leave these three things in here. Now you can iron right down against here. It won't hurt the pleater to run your iron carefully on it. I've done it many times. As you can see, this thing is still in really good shape. Now we'll let this, pull these out. And this needs to dry now before we take it out of here. But let's skip over here a little ways. I'm still going to put something to hold this down because I don't want to pull and have it pull out. Because when you do pull, you'll notice if you watch the end of the fabric, when I push this down in, it pulls the fabric towards the pleat I'm making. And if I don't have this in here, it will pull the fabric right out. So let's put this stick down. Now let's do one where we're doing every other one. So let's skip this ridge and do this. We can get a different look this way. And my fabric is not cut straight, so it's kind of pulling up. That's okay. I can trim it later. Let's skip another one. And this way I can put them further apart. You can do all kinds of designs. You could do, you know, 2 together or all of them together or whatever. Okay, let's let this set. I'll show you how to get the pleats. We'll set up a few pleats on the small pleater, and when this is cooled and dried, I'll show you the next step to this. Okay, we're going to use the small pleater now. I'll spray another piece of fabric with some spray starch. Get it nice and wet. Same rules again. If you're going to put hems in, try and hem both sides. Now I like to work this direction. You can work this way, you can work away from yourself. Whatever direction works best for you. It doesn't matter. The pleater doesn't care what order you go in, just so you keep this. I dropped both cards. Keep something in this one as you pull down there. Now let's just go ahead and slide this in here. That'll be easier. And these are closer together, and they're also smaller pleats, which you'll be able to see when we get done and I seal them and we'll pull them off when they get all cooled and dried. You'll be able to see that they are different sizes. The pleats themselves are not only closer together, but they're not as deep and not as wide. Now where would you use this? Well, I use it to make curtains for my dollhouse. Oh, and you might be saying, how much do these cost, right? Christmas is coming. I'm filming this just before Thanksgiving, so Christmas is coming. I looked online. It looks like they retail, this size retails for about $20, and this size for about $30. And you say, that sounds kind of expensive, but I also looked at dollhouse curtains online. Dollhouse curtains started like $10 a piece. So if you can use this and make the curtains for your dollhouse out of just a few dollars of fabric, you will save that $20 or $30 pretty quickly. Again, I'm going to skip. So, you know, it depends on how much you're going to use it. And I do use these a lot, and they're a lot of fun. And you can do all kinds of things with them. So, I've done a few. Let's not stain. It is a little harder to get them to stay in the smaller pleater. It doesn't work as easily as the larger one. And there is a size that's even smaller, and I imagine they are probably even a little more persnickety about staying in. So I'm going to reset this pleat that tried to plop out. Okay, we're going to let this dry and cool, and then I'll be back. All right, now that this is dry, or pretty much dry and cooled off, it's time to take it off. But now you might be saying, well, how do I make sure this is going to stay? Well, here's one I did yesterday with spray starch, and I did nothing to this one to keep it in. And as you can see, because it's dried, it stays. So I could just use this the way it is. This one, I'm going to show you a different way of setting. And depending on where I'm using the item, how I secure these to make them more secure. One way is to use like a heat and bond hem tape. You buy this where they have the sewing stuff at the store. And I'm going to cut a couple of pieces that are just a little narrower than my fabric. And depending on if the back of my piece is going to show how I secure this. This way it's going to show a little bit, so you'd have this like against a wall or something where it doesn't show. This is a really good way to do it. I'm not going all the way at the end, but that's okay. And then I've cut 2 pieces of cardstock. This is just index card. They're just about the same width as my piece of heat and bond. And I'm going to use my iron. Now this time I've turned the steam off, so there's no steam. And I'm going to just, this will melt this tape and make it fuse to both the back of the fabric and to this card. Now let's let this cool while we do another piece, and then we'll come back to that. Right, now we've got this littler one. For this one, and this is a really good way if you've got something that's pretty sheer, like lacy or something like that, like a lace or something. This is what's called interfacing. This you use in sewing to make things, like the collars or cuffs on a shirt, stiffer. It's like a stiffener for fabric. And also this is something that you use the iron to put on. For this you need to protect your iron. I like to use a piece of just typing paper or computer paper. And just hold the iron on here for a few seconds. Oh, and something on your interface, it's going to have one side that's going to be sticky and not the other side. So this is the non-sticky side, obviously. Now that's attached to the back, and it doesn't really show much. And I did this on a pair of lace curtains for a dollhouse one time. You couldn't even see it. But it holds my pleats. You can see this is where we did every pleat, and this is every other pleat. Let's pull this one off. Hopefully this is set up well enough. Come on, come out. And that one too. And you can see the difference in the size of the pleats from the 2 sizes. But this is a lot, these pleaters are a lot of fun to use. You could also glue a piece of ribbon on very carefully, depending on where you're using this. So that's just a really quick how-to on the Pretty Pleat. If you guys are interested, I'd be happy to show you how to make a set of curtains. Comment below if you want to see more on how to use these tools and what you'd like to see me make. And as always, have fun with your minis, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.